Hey everyone, and welcome back to NDC. And today I want to take some time to talk about my probably most imported next to SwiftUI combine framework. Now I want to quickly show you an example of what we used to have to do before combine. This is an old UIKit code nested with completion handlers. Essentially, we would want to fetch the data, then we'd want to decode, we'd then save, and then we'd have our refresh. And, you know, it's, it worked, but it's a lot of code. There's also some glaring issues with this. Every single one of these steps waits for the previous one's completion before continuing, causing nested indentation. Every layer then repeats. We can see here we have like card error checks with do and catch. This is exactly why things like combine or async and await clean it up. I'm going to show you a quick keynote. I want to quickly go over how combine works, and then I'll show you some examples in Xcode as to why it's so amazing. So with the combine framework, we start off with a publisher. This is the source of truth, emitting any values over time. An example would be having an array and then marking it as publisher. We then move on to the operators. This is any transformations between them. Things like mapping, filter, or even debouncing are some pretty common operators. Then finally, we have our subscriber. This is the listener that then reacts to any of those emitted values. Typically, this is done with sync. Here's a code example. So at the very top, we import combine. This is the framework. I use it all the time, especially when we have things like observable objects. Essentially, it helps us handle streams of values, things that change over time in a declarative way. We then have our cancelable publisher. We start with an array of numbers, 1 through 5. By adding the .publisher to the array, we're turning that array into a publisher, something that can publish each number one at a time to anyone who's listening. So instead of us manually looping over the array, combine takes care of sending each value, so in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, down a data stream. We're then filtering. So this is a filter operator. In this case, it's only going to let numbers through if they meet a certain condition. For us, if the number is odd. So from our original list, the odd numbers of 1, 3, and 5 make it through. We then map. The map transforms each value in the stream. Here it takes each number and turns them into a string, specifically adds the word number in front of each one of those. So we would now have number 1, 3, and 5. Finally, we use sync, which is a subscriber. Subscribers are what the entire data flow, like they're saying, okay, combine, I'm ready to receive values. Without a subscriber, the publisher doesn't actually do anything. And that's why you should also subscribe to this channel. Anyways, in this case, the subscriber's job is simple. Whenever a new value comes in, print to the console. So when we run this code, we would have some output of number 1, number 3, and number 5. This is a simple example of a full combined pipeline in action. A publisher that emits values, operators transform them, and subscribers that react to the results. Let's go ahead and see some examples in Xcode now. So in my first example, I've created a data store, and this is a class that is an observable object. This is what I use a lot of my combine for. We have a published variable here, which we start off at 0. We can also include methods. So here we have a function to add 1 to the item count. Then in our content view, we're referencing a state object of our data store. So we're loading in that observable object. From here, I just have a count, which is going to look at the store.item count, and we're also going to be incrementing it by using the increment function. Now, every time we press the button, just like a state private variable does, we can see that the view refreshes and we can watch it increment one by one. So if we put that in combine terms, every time item count changes, combine notifies all the subscribers, including any SwiftUI views, observing that object. Here we just have content view, but you can have multiple views observing this different object. So if you have this score here and you want to display it on a leaderboard or profile stats, all of these views can subscribe and view those changes. So there's no manual UI refresh calls, no callbacks. SwiftUI's rendering engine subscribes automatically through combine. So now that we understand publishers and subscribers, let's transform the stream with any operators. Here I've built a search bar. We once again are using observable object. We have search text, and we're going to be using the debounce in order to basically say, okay, if the user hasn't typed anything for 300 milliseconds, we can then go ahead and filter it and make sure it's not empty. and then we would be printing what the person is searching for. I've just really quickly also hooked this up to a view here, once again with the state object, and we're looking at the search text. Now, I'm going to clear my console because I was testing things earlier. Pay attention as I type to the console below. Let's just say I put the letter S and then stop typing. After those 300 milliseconds, it'll appear. But what if I type out Swift and then spacebar? You'll notice that until I stopped typing, until it stopped receiving inputs, it then printed out Swift. So this means if I'm really fast, I can probably get my whole sentence before it populates. Oh, I wasn't fast enough. Okay. I had to try to think of something on the fly, and apparently I love to eat Cheetos. But you can see that it's only going to be updating with that debounce if there's a pause. So this is also really great because I don't want it to be searching every single letter every single time there's a minute change. So we can use the debounce as well as the filter, because I don't want it to be searching for a blank term every second, right? If I have a spacebar here, we can say searching for. But if it's completely blank, it's no longer, because of that filter, going to be displaying what it's searching for. We're then using that sync to print the term what we're searching for. So we have our publisher, we have our two operators, and then our subscriber. So this is a pretty simple way of how Combine works. We've been importing them in a lot of our AV-Kit Foundation projects, and so I figured it's about time that I cover how Combine works with a couple cool examples. If you want to download this example so you can test some things out on your own, it will be available on my GitHub. Otherwise, dream big, code bigger, and you can see why it's so great we don't have to do any of this nonsense anymore. Because yeah, this was a lot. Bye bye UIKit. Hello Combine and SwiftUI.